welcome to the Coach U Show.
Today we're going to talk about how to become famous for the right reasons. A lot of people, they want to be influencers. They're self-declared. Just like, imagine if I told you that I was an expert at using the phone or I was an expert at thinking. And in summary, to be truly famous should be something beyond what you say about yourself. But because you're someone like Ro Choi, who I known for 15 years ago back in the Facebook app days, and then became the CEO of BitTorrent and did a bunch of other things, you want to be someone like him or someone like Thomas Hawkins. And he's not just a great Chevrolet dealer, but he has served his town, served his neighborhood, trained up all these other dealers, trained up his family, learned from his dad as a car dealer, so that he's well known in his small town in Minnesota, not because of what he says about himself or because he's trying to become famous, but because he's developed a reputation. So what we want to talk about today is what are the ways to do it the right way, and what are the just bogus, doofus, idiot. What is the word? You don't want to be like one of those charlatan social media famous chest beating douchebag sorts of people. That was the word I was looking for. So we'll talk about some of the good ways, some of the bad ways, and then open it up to you guys for questions with Jeffrey as our moderator, where you can ask a question and maybe make a comment on something that you've observed. So I wrote an article on Influencive, which is one of the top influencer websites, and tongue in cheek, it was, I think it's 4 years ago, and it was how I do not want to be an influencer, something like that. Why I am not an influencer, because I posted it on the site that's all about being an influencer because I thought it'd be funny. And then I wrote another I wrote another article along the same lines, and it became the number one article on the Influencive site with 16,000 shares and whatnot. And my point was, to be an influencer, it's what other people say about you. So if you have to say that you're world famous, if you're in a neighborhood, I was in East Palo Alto recently, and then there were these, it is not a great neighborhood, and there are signs around that said, this is a safe neighborhood, we don't tolerate crime at all, and there's bars on the windows. And I'm thinking, if you have to say that you're safe, if you have to say that you're whatever it is, that you're probably not, right? Thou doth protest too hard. It's like the small man in the big truck kind of thing. You can say whatever you want about that. So the thing about these people who want to be influential, shall we say, is most of them that want to be that don't deserve it. And I'll probably get hammered or canceled for saying this, but so I have a blue check on most of the social networks except for Instagram. I'm going to get that one soon, I think. And so I get a ton of people that say, hey, can you help get me a blue check, and can you get me on, and can you help me speak at a conference? We've spoken at these different conferences. And I'll say, it's not because you spoke at the conference that you then became successful. It's because you did it the other way around. It's because you started a huge app network like Ro Choi here, and that's what created the media attention. So being famous is about, and who am I to say? I'm only medium famous. In the world of digital marketing, I'm well known, but that's a tiny little pond compared to being a movie actor or a sports celebrity or that kind of thing. So I think that social media, if I can get on my little high horse for a moment, soapbox, has made it so that people who are younger feel, and there's research that backs it up, people feel they have to be semi-famous. They have to have 1 million followers. They have to have a blue check mark, even to be worthy of being respected by their friends. And I think that's such a sad thing. I think that you should be focusing in the first few years of your career on doing something that is noteworthy, helping other people, creating value because of something that you do. And then your customers do your word of mouth marketing for you. I think social media is the ultimate place to get your customers to be able to talk about you. We did some work for the Golden State Warriors. We ran their ads for 5.5 years, which is amazing. I got to hang out with some of the players in the locker room and be there on the court side and eat this special food that they had for us. And Steph Curry even handed me a Chipotle burrito. Can you believe that? So I was micro famous, but I didn't take any pictures of him and I. I thought that'd be weird. Well, he's busy playing basketball. I'm not going to say, hey, Steph, let's take a selfie. That would be really rude. But I did post what we did for the Golden State Warriors. Not because I'm honoring myself and saying, oh, I'm a really good digital marketer. Hey, look, we're the agency that does the stuff for the Golden State Warriors. No, when I had an opportunity to speak on stage. This was right before COVID. It was at a stadium in Norway, and the opening keynote the year before was Richard Branson. And they said, "Hey, Dennis, would you like to come keynote in front of this stadium of thousands of people?" And I said, "Why, sure, I'd love to." So I said yes to that. And then I thought, wait, it'd be better. I'm going to invite the head of digital for the Golden State Warriors to speak instead of me. So other people said, "Dennis, you're crazy. Why would you do something like that? That's an amazing opportunity where you can show that you're speaking in front of this stadium of all these people." And I said, "No, watch what I'm going to do." So I made sure that all the TV cameras and whatnot, at the event, because I was there for the opening keynote. I still flew out there. So I was there in the beginning. They introduced me, which is great, and I said a couple things just to warm up the crowd. And I said, "But the person you really want to talk to is the head of digital marketing for the Golden State Warriors. Will everybody please stand up and give a hand to blah blah blah, and welcome Daniel Brusilovsky out. He did a fantastic job. It was one of those, it wasn't like the guy wasn't already a great public speaker, wasn't already accomplished. Flying out there business class, getting all the video footage of him speaking in front of these other people, tons of Silicon Valley cred, made him look good in front of the other people in the NBA, made Facebook look good because we said, hey, last year we spent $1 million on Facebook ads and we drove $28 million in ticket revenue through Ticketmaster. And here's how we did it. And Daniel logs into the laptop, logs into the Facebook ads account, logs into Google Analytics, and literally says, yep, this ad did better than that ad. This is how we built our audiences. This is how we structured our campaigns. This is how we do our creative. This is how we do all this stuff. And I was just there watching him go through all that. And it was more powerful for me to introduce Daniel and have him do all the talking than it would be for me to parade out on stage and say, da 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 da, hey, I'm Dennis Yu. I'm a really big deal. You should follow me. I'm famous. Look, I run ads for the Golden State Warriors. What a douchebag if I said something like that. Instead, I said, I'm so honored that Daniel came out here to share with us how he's able to drive not just tons of social media engagement, but actually drive sales. And that applies to you even if you don't have an email database of 8 million people or whatever it is. This will work for you as a small business. And Daniel's going to show you how to do all this. And so let me back up a step. By sharing by honoring my friend Daniel, just like I want to, honor our buddy Corey Henke, who's here. He's a killer YouTube advertiser. By honoring other people, I actually look a lot better because they're going to return the favor. Corey, who's in the audience right below Thomas Hawkins, was at an Adobe, I think, was it called Omniture? Now it's called Adobe. Anyway, one of these tech events. And I think I spoke, and then he came up after me, and we connected. And since then, I've referenced him as this YouTube ads god, and vice versa. He's done that for me on digital marketing and Facebook ads and analytics. And it's the way to become better known. So what would have looked like me foregoing an opportunity to speak on stage ended up being a fantastic thing because now the guy who's head of digital marketing for the Warriors goes around, speaks about me, refers us to the Dallas Cowboys and to the Houston Rockets and to other sorts of sports teams, invited me to speak at some other conference because he was a speaker. He said, hey, you should invite Dennis as a speaker. Like returning the favor, but I think he would have done it anyway. And we also got the footage and we built a speaker reel. And it's so nice. You have a speaker reel where you can see the whole audience out there and he's speaking to everybody. And that was just a fantastic thing. Made him look good. We prepared the presentation. He knew exactly what to do. Not like he wasn't already competent in digital marketing, but we just made it easy for him. So think about how you can become better known. I don't want to say famous because that implies that you're a douchebag, but by honoring other people. If you look at my Facebook or Twitter or whatnot, I spend most of my time honoring other people, not because I'm trying to get something back, but because I think they're truly awesome people. And a lot of them, they pay me money, which is not for coaching or for helping with their analytics. And I just want to say, hey, look at what Tom Hawkins did with Best Price with his Chevy dealership. And so I would put that out to you. What do you guys think about the idea of you become better known because you've actually accomplished something? And then you honor other people that are in your circle where they return the favor to you, and that gives you media attention, and it comes off as less douchebaggery. You share your expertise instead of selling. You focus on how you can actually create value by just publishing your stuff out there for free, instead of saying, oh, it's a secret. You got to pay me $2,500 and come to my mastermind to actually find out what the secret is to heart surgery. No, freaking go look it up. It's all well documented how to do heart surgery. You're not one heart surgery away from being a millionaire. It's all right out there. But I think social media creates this weird thing where you feel like you have to become famous or you have to self promote. But because there's so many people out there self promoting, do we have to do that too? Or I'll mention one last thing, and then I want you guys to start raising your hands. I'm intentionally trying to rile folks up to see if they want to come up and argue, right? Or have a discussion or make a comment. So raise your hand, right? It's going to be hand raising time in just a few seconds. So I was with, and go ahead and hit the hand raise button, and Jeffrey's going to moderate. So while you guys are raising your hands, I'm going to tell you one little story. So 2 hours ago, I was with David Goodman, and he is perhaps the best known auctioneer for charity auctions. This guy, you see him with all the celebrities. He's doing all the big events. He'll sell $1 million thing from the stage, and this guy can talk 10 times faster than I can talk. You think I can talk fast? This guy talks fast. I won't even try to pretend that I'm doing an auction. And I look at all of these pictures and videos of him with presidents of the United States and well known comedians and other sorts of people. And I think, wow, how come this guy he's raised $500 million through charity auctions? Why isn't why doesn't he have a blue check mark on Instagram? Why isn't there more about him on social media? Just last week, he was doing an event for NetJets. So those of you guys who fly private know that NetJets is probably the largest one. Warren Buffett owns a good chunk of it, if not all of it. And NetJets brought out 7 of their new aircraft, showing, hey, if you buy into the NetJets fractional jet ownership thing, and you want to fly somewhere, you have this whole fleet, and look at how nicely it's done, and the equipment, and inside, and all the snacks and drinks and pilots and all that kind of stuff from flying private. And I said, David, do you have anything from that event? He said, no, I didn't, because I thought it'd be douchey. He didn't say douchey, but that's the way I reinterpreted it. To just selfie myself and say, hey, look, everybody, look at what I'm doing. I'm so famous. Look at where I'm living this lifestyle. Haha, you can't enjoy something like this. And I said, no, bring people along. And you got the CEO of NetJets there. Why don't you ask him, what it's like growing his company? And how do you deal with difficult personalities who think that they're really important and they fly private? Or what are some challenges that you see in modern aviation because of COVID? Or what, like interviewing these other people just to get a sense of what it's like you're bringing a friend along. And because of that, our conversation earlier today, he's like, oh man, over the last 30 years, I could have had these different conversations. I could have collected them on my iPhone. I didn't need to hire a professional videographer. So I want to leave you with that and see, what do you guys think about the right reasons to become famous and the douchey ways to do it and the right ways to do it?
Yeah,
This is Coach You in the
yeah.
Orange.
Dennis, before we go to people on the stage, I want to just unpack a few things that you said because it's interesting, and I know you're trying to rile people up, but I tend to agree. I think influencer is a business term, right? It's a buzzword. Influence is a human term, right? Human beings, we as people could have influence. It has nothing to do with whether you're an influencer or not. You can have 1 million followers and have very little influence, actually. And you can have 1,000 followers and have a lot of influence, actually. So I think there's a lot going on with the buzzword and the number counting. And I love what you said about the shining a light on others. I was the CMO of .club domains, which we recently sold to GoDaddy. But our philosophy for marketing was to point the light, shine the light on businesses that were using a .club domain, because the domain industry in and of itself is not that interesting. We didn't want to talk about ourselves. People didn't want to hear about the registry operator of .club domains. People wanted to hear about what people were doing with their domain. So our whole marketing strategy was about doing exactly what you said, shining a light on businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, individuals who are using a .club domain. And when you shine a light on others, you're actually shining a light on yourself without realizing it. So I thought those were great
Amen.
points, Dennis.
Amen. And I'd love to hear what you guys think. I want to hear you argue. Here, I'll say something that'll piss off people. If your content is all about yourself, if it's just you're doing something wrong, your customer should be doing your promoting for you. So you never have to make anything about your own stuff. Now you can promote your customers, but if it's all about you, I'd have to argue, are you really approaching marketing the right way? Because if you're doing a great job, your customers and your partners and your employees, they love you. And then you run the content factory to share what they have to say. All right, let's go to the audience. And if you guys have a question, go ahead and ask. And Jeffrey's going to moderate here.
So Elizabeth, you were up first. Did you have a comment or something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I just love what Dennis is saying about service first, and then the customers and whether or not fame is intended for you will come. Um, and I agree with the concept about not focusing too much on yourself in your promotions, and instead it's all about your customers. And it's really funny because I had two different coaches at the same time related to launching my business, and one was like saying, you have to put quite a bit about yourself out on your webpage, because in order to be a life coach, people have to really know who you are enough to know whether or not to trust you. And so I'm trying to build out testimonials from my clients, but a lot of them really don't want to share personal. So I'm trying to focus more on my clients and less me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yep.
you dipped out for a second, but you're back.
Okay. So there's that piece. If you have any thoughts about when you're doing like holistic, really aggressive life coaching, a lot of people that get coached want privacy. And so if you have any thoughts about that. And then the last thing is
Hey, why don't we take that question one at a time? Otherwise,
okay,
if you stack
sure.
questions, I'm going to forget. My memory is like a goldfish,
Get up.
7 seconds.
Okay.
So the thing, I'll give you a parallel, Elizabeth, with cosmetic surgeons. And I have some friends that are some of the top cosmetic surgeons in the United States, and they tell me that with the patients, there's no before, right? There's only the after. And the cosmetic surgeons will even be at dinner parties or whatnot, and they'll walk by their clients, and the clients will pretend that they don't even know them because they don't want the other celebrities to know who did their butt or who did their nose or whatnot. And same thing for maybe not personal injury attorneys, but maybe if you a criminal attorney, like you don't want someone to know that you're a criminal and you had a great attorney to get you, because it's embarrassing. In life coaching, same thing with like personal issues, or if you want to give a testimonial for a psychologist that you're seeing or shrink that you're seeing for some issue that you're dealing with, you don't want to do that. But so the way around it, which is, and I'm glad you asked, Elizabeth, is what I told our client David Goodman, who's the auctioneer. He said these executive directors that run these companies, or like CEO of NetJets, they don't want to give a testimonial saying, oh, David is the best auctioneer, you should hire him. Some will, but they're very sensitive about their audience and about these kinds of things, right? The higher they are, the more sensitive they are about their brand. So what you do is you have a podcast. So I'll just say, hey, I'm Elizabeth Lava, and I have the Lava podcast or whatever it is. And you elevate the client, and you don't even talk to them about, you're not trying to fish for a testimonial. You're not trying to slant them into saying how awesome it is to work with you. You elevate them just like you're Larry King, and you're asking questions about their expertise and about who they are, and you're elevating them. And we found that, and even in areas where you think people would not want to talk about their life coach or their practitioner or their attorney or whatnot, it works very well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, because I got so frustrated with one client who I gave her a deep discount for a coaching package on the premise that she would
Never
provide
do
me a
that. Never do that. A, never give a discount, and B, don't do it for a testimonial because that's bogus.
Yeah, and then I actually wrote a draft testimonial for her, and I'm like, this feels
That's
so
fake.
wrong. And
Fake.
okay, if I was to say to her, let's focus on who you are as a person and professional now in your testimonial, and can you?
No, do not say the
Okay,
word testimonial.
okay,
It's not a 4-letter word. What is that? A 9-letter word? It is a bad word, because a testimony, when you go to a website or whatever and you see a list of all these testimonials, what do you think?
fake unless
Just
they
like,
have their full name
yeah,
and a
just
photo.
if you're going to hire somebody and they have these references, are you ever going to call those references? No, because it's slanted. Instead, you want to tell so and so's story, right? When you tell their story about how they overcame something or how they dealt with something, or who you're elevating them, not as you're not trying to make them some customer that you're just putting words in their mouth. Oh, how bad of you trying, like, no, never put words in their mouth. The whole point is to make them look good. So what is their area of expertise? Why should they become known? What is it that's special about them? What's the human angle? They could be a house mom with 3 kids. There's always something that's interesting and redeeming about every single human. And our job is to find that and elevate that and do it in a non douchey sort of way. So if you call it the Lava Podcast, you just declare it, You don't need to have all this infrastructure and equipment and whatever. You just declare that you have a podcast, and now you do, and you just interview them on Zoom, saying, "Hi, this is Elizabeth. Welcome to another edition of the Lava Podcast. Today, we're talking to Jeffrey, and Jeffrey is the CMO of paw.com, and he's grown this thing from just a couple million to double digit and almost triple digit millions. He's an incredible marketer, and I've had the pleasure of spending time with him and even looking at his amazing rugs, not some cheap Walmart rug, but something really plush that you would love to see in your living room as a centerpiece. Jeffrey, welcome to the show. Oh, thank you for having me, Dennis. Jeffrey, first off, I have to ask you, like, how did you become interested in animals and pets and all? Well, so you see what I'm saying? You turn it into a podcast. Don't you know
Elizabeth,
what I
you
mean?
want to shine the lava lamp on people.
The lava lamp. That's what it should be called.
Oh, it's really
There it
funny because
is.
I've always wanted to have a lava lamp and never had. So it's hilarious. Okay, looks like someone came off the stage. I had another question, but I'll step off. You guys can boot me off. Thank you
Why
so
don't you
much. That's awesome.
stay on? Let's get through some of the questions. We'll come back to you. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
Elizabeth,
Great, Lisa.
I yield
Go ahead.
my mic back to you. Ask your next question.
Me? Really? Okay. Is that okay with you, Dennis and Jeffrey?
Let's do it.
Okay, so my other question is, so I wrote a book about my own what's called a spiritual emergency, which is psycho-spiritual event that's pretty extreme. And so I'm deeply spiritual now. And one of the concepts about service and helping others is there should be a component of your service that is really private and you don't talk about it. And you certainly don't use it for self-promotion. And so I had an opportunity that just was like flying in my face related to proceeds from like a yoga and meditation workshop I want to teach to go completely to a shelter for battered women. And I really want to do that, but I don't want it to like, so maybe I could just do it and not mention it on my webpage or social media or anything. And it's just between me and the yoga studio I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a very spiritual way. So I'm not using for self promotion. If it ends up promoting me in the long run, great, but that's not my intention. Any thoughts about that?
Certainly, your involvement with this battered women's shelter is you can, if you want to help, then you want to spread the word, not in a self-promotional kind of way, but you're elevating other people's causes, just like Jeffrey talked about. So I'm an admin on the House Rabbit Society. So don't judge me because I know all kinds of stuff. I can talk for hours about rabbits and their behavior and this kind of thing. For Easter, they had a Make Mine Chocolate campaign, or the idea that these kids, they get a bunny for Easter and that bunny's it's going to live for 10 years. There's a whole issue about that. And so I thought that was a worthy cause. So I supported it and helped them with their Facebook ad campaigns and Google campaigns. And does that have anything to do with the other stuff that I'm working on? Not at all. But it was something that I thought was a great cause, and I believed in the people behind it. And I didn't think there was anything wrong about doing that. Just because you're talking about something, if you do, as long as you do it the right way, I don't think it would reduce the spirituality or dignity of something. There's a lot of sensitive issues that if you talk about it in the right way, it's great, and it helps people identify with you, and it humanizes who you are. Not to say that you need to make that a pillar of, like, some people think that with social media you have to share every little aspect of your family and private life. No, you don't. But just share the things that you think are meaningful.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Please move me back to the audience because Lisa jumped off. I feel bad. Okay, thank you for both of you.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Elizabeth, when it comes to those kinds of acts, go with your gut. Clearly, your gut is telling you not to promote it heavily because that's why you're asking the question. And so just do it and don't worry about that. And chances are someone from the organization may mention you as a donor or as a contributor at some point, and the word will get out organically instead of being from you. And in the long run, that will actually inure to your benefit even more. So go with your gut on that. I feel like your gut is telling you not to make a big deal about it because you asked the question.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Rich, welcome. Did you have something to add?
Yes, definitely. I actually like this topic because it's something that I'm currently in the process of doing. So I've had a creative agency for some time, and now I'm focusing on being more of a business advisor and consultant for like startups. In the process of doing that, to reiterate what you were saying as far as like launching podcasts and stuff of that nature, I have done that in the past, and it's something that definitely helps in making you more known within any specific market. So that I totally believe in. However, what I would say is not everyone is necessarily capable or want to be in front of the camera or whatever the case. The way I solved that for myself was I put together a team of people. So I didn't want to be the person in front of the camera. So I got two hosts to manage the podcast, and I just found the people. Now, as far as building relationships, I think it's more important to have like positive relationships with people that in turn garner you like word of mouth. I was listening to this Kevin Hale podcast yesterday from Y Combinator, and he was talking about like the magic moment, right? Like that moment where someone uses your product and they're like, oh, this is like an amazing, whether I saw my friends or like it was this thing that happened that I really loved. And I think we can do that when we interact with people. So just by giving people positive experiences, like for instance, in her case, having that place where people have resources and help that they can get, like introducing them to that place and knowing people in and out in the sense of like, how you say, know your customer or know your friends or whatever, what this person needs, like the problem that they have, and maybe you can't solve it, but you can introduce them and be a connector. And when you solve like hard problems for people, tend to talk about you in a positive manner. So that's how you can like avoid like the self promotion, having other people promote for you by being that person that solves that really hard problem for them specifically.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rich. Absolutely. By helping people out, the word will spread that you were the one who connected them or helped them. So thanks for that contribution. Thomas, always good to see you.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, based on what Elizabeth was saying, that I think she got good advice from Dennis, and I guess for me, it's become automatic, and it's something that I've learned just from hanging out with Dennis. I'm part of Office Hours, part of his mastermind group, and I could swear that the other mastermind group that I'm in is based on the Go Giver book. And that's ever since I've known Dennis, that's how he is. He's just a giver. He's edifying people all the time. I use that word a lot because Dennis uses it a lot. And it's obvious Dennis isn't care whether he's famous or not. He edifies just some little podunk car dealer from Minnesota. And I appreciate that. And I've learned some things about that, about how to, the best way it does. I used to be like Elizabeth. That's the natural thing to do, to want to promote the things that are good and to get people because that's what you were taught. Social media is new. You got to get the word out. You got to get reviews on your website. And boy, the best reviews you can get are the ones that come naturally, and they can come naturally. You can still make them happen by elevating others. Then it'll come back in spades. That's what the Go Giver is about. That's what Dennis is about, and that's one thing I've learned from that. So I think I hope, Elizabeth, that you took away some good things, because if you can look to help others, it's naturally going to come back to you in a lot of ways that are going to be much more fulfilling than asking people for reviews. So don't feel rebuked when Dennis said, don't use the word testimonial, because I've heard him do the same thing. And those are just things that you learn from people like him in rooms like this. So that's what I wanted to share. I'm very appreciative. Even though I'm not in Dennis's business, I learn a lot from Dennis just hanging out with him and the people that he brings into these rooms. And that's just an important thing that Elizabeth brought up and Dennis was able to address. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Love having you here. And I love the orange background you have.
Well, that's what I did. And also the people like you and Kevin Lee that have a 2-letter last name, I decided to create a name for Clubhouse, a 2-letter last name for myself. So that's and I copied exact color of your background. I figure I might as well emulate you as long as you're such a good edifier. So
The best students are the best teachers, and vice versa.
Thank you, Thomas. Always good to hear from you. And thanks for all those kind words about Dennis. It's great. Annie, welcome.
Nice to see you guys again. Hi, everyone. This topic is very interesting. I think my personal question is that I'm at the stage that I have a lot of marketing experiences and have some influence in the emerging technology industry, but I have met people who are very successful in marketing and to the level that they can independently to help the top celebrities or the top government campaigns and all that. So I want to reach to the top, but I don't know what's the next step and how to do the personal branding like the topic said, how to become famous for the right reasons. And I know Jeffrey and and Thomas are already on the top of your field. So I want to get some insights, like what's the direction or some tips you can give me to avoid taking a lot of detours.
Annie, that's a great question. Help us understand, what's your goal?
I want to become a worldwide wild like a marketing expert like that. In the future, I
Marketing's broad.
can
So typically there's so many different areas within marketing functionally, and there's different verticals as well. Is there a vertical, like an industry you want to be known for helping in marketing?
I'm very good with branding. I specialize in digital marketing. Very strong with branding, market growth. So I help a startup to successfully start their business and hopefully to get a very successful exit. And I like this kind of field. So in the future, I
Okay.
want to be able to select the client that like more like I can pick somebody that level.
So back to what Thomas and Jeffrey were saying, to edify your best clients so they do the marketing for you. Is there one startup or one branding project that you're especially proud of where you've got a great relationship with them that you can talk about?
I do have a lot. I'm also currently helping United Nations to do their digital marketing, but my
Wow,
goal
that's
is
incredible. Are you able to talk about that?
I can't tell too much about United Nations, but my goal is really to become like a well-known marketing expert so I can become the level like maybe Jeffrey and you. And I know there must be a way to achieve that, and I really don't.
What are you allowed to talk about? Because the key is you want to elevate these clients, and if the UN won't let you talk about this, certainly some of these other guys will, and then share your expertise. So the thing that I opened with is that wanting to become famous isn't what makes you famous. It's where you are giving freely of your knowledge and you're honoring other people. So that's why I wrote that article on influence of why I am not an influencer, even though technically I am. I wrote this article and thousands of people said, "Oh, Dennis, no, you are an influencer because you have a blue check." That's douchey. Or because you have over 100,000 followers. No, that's not it. Oh, it's because these people. I know a lot of people, but that's not it. The key is you have to deliver, and you've probably heard this a zillion times, but you have to deliver value. So I would look at you, Annie, and I'd say, you clearly have a lot of expertise in marketing and branding. What are you doing to share that expertise in a structured, open way? And what are you doing to elevate? Maybe it's not the UN, you've got a bunch of other clients, but what are you doing to elevate them and make them look good? Not about you. When you make them look good, they make you look good because of who you're associated with.
Also, if I can add, Dennis, I think Dennis asked you, Annie, what your goal was. And I think that's really important when you say you want to become famous or well known as a marketer. The real question is why? What is it that you're trying to unlock? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because just being famous in and of itself is not much of a goal, to be perfectly blunt. It's what is being famous going to afford you? What are you going to try to accomplish if you were able to achieve that goal? What's the reason behind it? And I think that's really what you want to think about and ask yourself. And sometimes once you understand that, you can achieve it without becoming famous, right? And then you become famous because you achieved that goal first. So being famous shouldn't necessarily be the end game, in my humble opinion.
100%.
I have a question from the audience via the back channel, Dennis,
All right.
for you. So I'm going to read it from Rana. She can't talk right now, but she's got a question. When, in your opinion, should a business be ready to start a customer advocacy program? Not just a plan, but a proper advocacy program to build that connect, hopefully push more social proof and become famous. Thank you.
Yesterday is the best day, Rana, to start that advocacy program. It doesn't have to be some documented SOP that's 100 pages. You don't have to set up a customer advocacy department and hire all these people. It's simply using my favorite technology, this sophisticated thing called Google Sheets. And whenever somebody mentions you, you can be using Google Alerts or mention.com or the notifications on Facebook or whatever it is. Like Twitter, you can see people that are mentioning you in your notifications. It should be integrated as part of your operations, right? Whatever you're doing, whether it's consulting or providing services or having a product, there's always a customer feedback loop. And the beauty is, the more your business grows, right, the more customers you have, the more feedback you're going to get, where you have happy clients that are talking about you. You have more people to interview. So think about how this is something that grows. It's not, okay, I've now hit 10 customers, or I've now hit $1 million in revenue, and now I can start my advocacy program. It's not something you start. It's something that you're always doing. Like, when should I start breathing? You should always be breathing, right?
That's great, Dennis. Hopefully, Rana, that answered your question. And like Rana did, if you don't want to raise your hand, feel free to message us or Dennis or myself via the back channel, and we can answer your question that way as well.
Thomas, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I just got off the phone with my wife. Would repeat the question?
What does she think?
Yeah.
She says, "Why aren't you home and eating your supper?" No, I think this has been a good conversation. I learned a lot from that because I spent my life in the retail business, and as I learned to develop marketing strategies, the internet came along, and because I was in this business before the internet, and as these strategies came along, it was really stumbling through and doing things that today we would blanch at, but that's what you thought you had to do. So I think what we're learning by that is really boils down to is being genuine, being a giver, giving of yourself, edifying others, and in the long run, that is the best way to promote yourself, because people naturally just want to reciprocate. They don't want to. Everyone's tired of filling out surveys and reviews because they get those requests every day. And I think that's just a real good approach to marketing yourself. And because you're not, what's going to happen is you're going to become famous if that's what you're looking for, or if you're going to become, you're going to get the positive reviews naturally by just treating people the way they want, and using things like podcasts and listening others. Even though the final goal is going to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. You're lifting others and helping others at the same time. I think that's a wonderful strategy. And Dennis mentioned it last night or yesterday in office hours about, I just thought that was marvelous. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, you can start a podcast, just do a Zoom and call it a podcast. Sometimes we try to make things so hard when it can be so simple. And using the podcast to interview people for their edification, I think, is just a wonderful strategy. So appreciate that.
Amen. Thank you so much, Thomas. I want to share with you another anecdote, and feel free to raise your hand if you want to argue or you have a thought about this. Some recent research for young adults where they asked, what job profession do you want to enter into? What the number one result was, survey says, influencer, right? These young adults, they want to be an influencer. I didn't realize that was like policeman or fireman or dentist or whatever. I didn't realize like you have a business card that says influencer on it, but or that you could get a degree in becoming an influencer, which I think is ridiculous. But certainly if you're a 20-year-old, that seems to make sense, because you see these TikTok famous Instagram-ish sorts of folks, and you believe that there is a possibility of a lifestyle where you are just famous and the red carpet rolls out wherever you go, and you stay for free, and you use a product and all the money comes in because you have millions of followers, and all this magic stuff happens because you have a blue check mark and 20 million YouTube subscribers or whatnot. And certainly that fantasy is lived out by a few people. I believe the world's number one influencer for young adults, last I checked, is Jake Paul. And a lot of people think, and whatever you think about Jake Paul, whatever you think about Donald Trump or Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever, is that these people, no matter whether you like what they say or not, they're very good at attracting attention, right? Gary Vaynerchuk says things in an inflammatory way to try to get you to talk about him. So all his haters are actually doing the work for him. I hate Gary Vaynerchuk because guess what? You are what's growing Gary Vaynerchuk, right? You scratch the itch, the mosquito bite, it gets worse, kind of thing. And it's funny because Jake Paul's team reached out to me and said, hey, we want to do a course on how to help young adults be able to become influencers and he didn't say become famous, because that's something that people like my age will say. Back in my day, we were famous on TV in the yellow pages when they still existed. And he wanted to build a course and release it digitally in a way that was interesting and not like these other people that are just selling stuff for high ticket and ripping off these kids. He actually wanted to help kids build a career, find a vision, learn how to manage their money, become independent, build a company, be an entrepreneur in all these sorts of different ways. And he came to me, not because I'm famous. I'm not famous. The guy's got way more followers than me. He's the number one influencer among young adults. And he came to me. And so I focused on him. I listened carefully to what his goals were. I listened carefully to the past attempts where they tried to launch courses and what worked and what didn't work. And we built a plan together and we did all this filming. We have hundreds of videos that we've done together that nobody's seen. We're going to release it very soon. And the funny thing is that because we've been doing all this training and I've been focusing very much on making this the very best program for young adults, we have put in a lot of money into making this a great training program for young adults that want to start a career in whatever area. We've brought that if they select, hey, I want to do e-commerce. Okay, great. Here's Brendan Agronoff, and he's got an 8-figure e-commerce business. He's going to teach you Shopify. I want to do YouTube. Here's who's got a big YouTube channel. I want to do website building. Here's who's built lots of websites. And here's someone who's, hey, Jake and I are going to introduce you to, because you told us you want to do this, or you want that skill, or you want to achieve this kind of result. You want to learn how to manage your money. Caleb Williams is our top guy there, and he wrote this book called The End Asset, and Caleb's now going to show you, how to think about compound interest and this kind of thing. And so we've assembled this whole group, not talking about ourselves, but bringing in the people that we know best. And we're lucky that we have a good network. And all of us have a network of people that we know that are very good. What Annie talked about, these other people, you could be intimidated by these people, or you could realize, you know what, I want to honor these people. It's not about me trying to use them to become famous. I just want to honor what I've learned from them and how they've mentored me and whatnot. So we've put this together and it's a great course. I'm not saying it because I'm trying to promote it, but because I've poured my life into this thing the last 18 months. And when it releases, all these other people are going to say, wow, who's this like bald Asian guy that's with Jake Paul? And I think it's going to make me famous. I'm not doing it to be famous. I'm doing it because my mission is to create 1 million jobs. And there's different ways of doing that through education and partnering with universities and that kind of thing that we like to do. I'm on the path to becoming famous, not because I want to be famous, but because by doing things in service to other people where they edify me, right? Imagine if the world's number one influencer for young adults is on camera and on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook saying, hey, Dennis and I put together this course. Hey, I chose Dennis to build this course because Dennis is this and this, because we have these friends, because of whatnot. Isn't that going to carry way more weight than me saying, hey, everybody, follow me. I'm influential. Look, I have a blue check mark. Oh, look, here's me on TV and here's some successful things that I've done in my career. So I want you guys to see that as that's the main crux of why we wanted to have a room today to talk about this. Is that ironically you become famous by uplifting other people and they do the work for you. And anyone who just wants to be famous, I'd have to ask, why do you want that? Is it because you want whatever it might be? Think about reframing that, kind of what Jeffrey said, into Simon Sinek, who has a whole book and TED talk on start with why. Consider your why. And when it's about a deeper mission, you want to help people in your community. There's a situation that you dealt with. Maybe your mom has cancer. Maybe it doesn't have to be something negative, but something that you care about. That deeper mission is what will cause people to want to share what you're doing and what you care about. And I think when Jake Paul and I launched this course, it's called Financial Freedom Movement, that helps people, young adults, find what they want to do and get skilled up and build a career. That's something that's shareable. They're not sharing it because they like Jake Paul because he knocked out the last person he boxed. They're not sharing it because, oh, Dennis Yu's really good at ads and analytics. They're not sharing it because they're impressed with the technology that we put together. They're sharing it because it's meaningful to them. So that's how you become famous. Create the value first.
And also, Dennis, understand what is valuable to you, because famous for the sake of fame isn't necessarily going to pay your rent. So you have to think about what are your objectives. Like Thomas, not to put you on the spot, but if you're selling cars, if you're a car dealer in Minneapolis, being famous on the internet may not help your business. Whereas being famous or well known or respected in your community, and where people talk about the great service they had at your dealership and how great an experience it was buying a car from you, that's going to actually help your business, not necessarily being famous around the world where people aren't really buying cars in Minneapolis. So you really have to have the goal of what's your objective first, and fame will come when you achieve your objective, in my humble opinion.
Amen. 100%. And I'll tell you, we did a 2-hour Zoom call earlier today with David Goodman, who's the auctioneer. And we went through all this stuff, and he said, wow, my mind is blown. This is unbelievable. You guys are adding so much value to my business. He started saying all these amazing things on a Zoom call, which is recorded. We always record all the Zoom calls. And then after he said all those things, I said, wow, can I quote you on that? And he said, absolutely. And then he added more things about our process and about how we fix some of these things that were broken. And I said, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to elevate you as the successful auctioneer because of what you said about us. And because we're demonstrating, here's how you build campaigns the right way. Here's how you build a website that actually shows up in Google in the right way. So think about how when you're with your clients or partners or employees and you have these moments, they happen all the time where someone says something good, where you ask for their permission, which is what we call lightweight consent. And I'm not a lawyer, but my friends who are lawyers say it's legally okay. Because in the Zoom call, if you ask them and they say yes, hey, do you mind if I quote you on that and feature you on the blog or put that on social media? And they say yes, it's legally. So that's how you build your brand. So the more I would ask you in what you do, whatever it is, you sell cars, you provide marketing consulting, you sell some product, whatever it is, listen for the positive mentions that other people have to say and reach out to those people. One of my favorite tools is called Crowdtangle. Have you guys heard of Crowdtangle? It's a company that started whatever 6-7 years ago, and then Facebook bought them and shut down some of their features. But the key thing now is it's a Chrome plugin. You can go to any website. It's a free Chrome plugin. You go to any website and it'll show you what all the likes, shares, and comments and tweets and whatnot across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and a few other ones are there. It shows you, and you'll find potentially tons and tons of people that are sharing your content that you didn't even know were sharing your content. Because how else would you know that somebody else grabbed the URL from some blog post on your website and then shared it on Twitter? How would you know? You wouldn't know. What if they didn't tag you? You wouldn't know. So the odds are you probably have a ton of mentions where people are saying good things. And then what do? You say thank you to them. And maybe if you really like them, you send them a pair of socks with their face on them from videosocks.com. So then they take a picture of that and share it and say, oh, wow, it's so awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And then they look at who you are, paw.com. Oh, wow. They have some pretty cool stuff on paw.com. So you see how you can build influence by capturing stuff that you otherwise might not have even seen?
Yep, great advice, and thank you, Dennis. You'll notice I never mentioned paw.com once. Dennis keeps mentioning this
I'll
for
keep
me.
talking
Thank you,
about
Dennis.
paw.com. There you go. Yeah, you don't want to be a douchebag.
So
Have other people talk about you. Go ahead.
exactly, and I'll talk about Coach U all day long as well. Salman, welcome. We're coming up close to the top of the hour, but do you have something you'd like to add to the conversation?
Hi, thanks, Jeffrey. I just saw Annie tap her mic, so maybe she has something to say before I do.
I just to have a quick follow-up based on what Dennis said. How do you find the mentorship whenever you have a question when you're moving to the top?
First off, I don't even know what the top is. I think I'm at the bottom because I always want to surround myself with other people who are incredible. I learned so much from Jeffrey. I wish he would talk more instead of me talking. And secondly, mentorship. You're getting mentorship right now. When you're around other people, you should always be in a state of learning and listening. I try to do that. I was just an hour ago, right before this call, I was the on a Zoom call with the founder of one of the major cryptos. And this guy was as humble as you can imagine. And I was learning from him about some of the stuff that I guess I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but some really cool stuff that he's doing that intersects with what we're doing in education. And we were in a Zoom call and he was, giving a product demo and I was giving him some advice about it and some thoughts. And then I just thought, you know what? We're already on the Zoom call. I'm going to start asking you all these questions. So I just peppered him and peppered him and peppered him with all these other questions. But now we didn't call it mentorship, but I got the value was all me. I got all the value. I don't want to be one of those people that just takes, but when you find other people that are willing to help you, you might ask them, hey, I really appreciate your advice. And if it's okay with you, could I maybe ask you a few questions here and there? I'll be respectful of your time. And you'll find that most people will say yes to that. And that's how you build a mentorship relationship, not a coaching relationship, not a group therapy program, not a structured kind of thing where you have to sign a legal document that you're going to meet every Wednesday at 10 o'clock or something like that. But that's, at least that's been my experience with mentorship. I had the CEO of American Airlines as my mentor, which is incredible. That's how I got my first real job. It wasn't that I applied. I didn't fill out some form on the American Airlines website saying, hey, can I have the CEO be my mentor? That'd be ridiculous. But it just comes through connections. It comes organically. And what Jeffrey said, you'll know because you can just feel when the time is right. You can feel when it's okay to ask, and you can tell when it's not quite the right time to ask.
That's incredible, valuable advice. Thank you.
And we have a whole
Thank
podcast. We
you,
have two
Annie and
podcasts.
Salman. Thank
Yeah,
you.
how to find, like,
Sorry.
Google how to find a mentor in my name, and I go into detail on how exactly you find the mentors, what are the techniques, and how do you tie a mentor towards your goal. Back to what Jeffrey said, decide what your goal is, and the goal shouldn't be become famous. Go a step further. Keep asking why on each thing, and you'll find something, and then find someone who's achieved that goal, and then that mentor can be in alignment, and then learn everything you can about that mentor. Don't just reach out and ask for help before you've done that kind of research. And we have some other steps on how to do that, and you will not believe how willing people are to help you, Annie. But check out, I've got a couple podcast episodes on how to find a mentor, and then let us know in Clubhouse what happened once you've studied that and taken action. Deal?
Yeah, if you can kindly share it just in this club, that would be really helpful too. I will definitely take a look.
Google's your friend.
I will do that.
Google is your friend, your brain, your partner. Salman, thank you so much for acknowledging Annie. Welcome and let us know what your thoughts are on this.
Hi, I came up with the earlier question Dennis mentioned, rather, wasn't the question, but a statement of what youngsters want to be influenced for or want to get there or rather become famous. But my challenge here is, and since you guys are coming at the top of the hour, I'm not sure if this is the right question to be asking at this time, but feel free to push it to another session. You guys open a room in.
Let's do it. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis. So I think I am famous. I've had views on a documentary that was made on me with millions of viewers, and I've shown up on multiple TV interviews and whatnot, but I haven't acted on it. I haven't done anything about it. I haven't been engaged in any kind of activity that, I don't know if it's the right word, but capitalize on it. I do have a message that I do want to share. I do have things I wish people would know that would make their lives better, whether it's mentoring youth or whether it's talking about emotional intelligence or other things, or my passion towards education for the young ones and making the education more relevant to our time today. All that said, I'm not sure whether it's my imposter syndrome or what I've solved earlier, which was my inferiority complex issues, but I still don't seem to be able to best use that to be able to serve others in a better way. So I don't know if there's anything you guys can, guide me on, or any of these comments, right?
Salman, you have imposter
Is
syndrome
imposter syndrome is
big time.
kicking in. Yeah.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome big time. And what happens is there's two ends on this spectrum. One end is Dunning-Kruger, which is the 22-year-old life coach that thinks he knows everything and wants to tell everyone about his knowledge, or the internet marketer that wants to do internet stuff but doesn't even have their own website fixed or whatever. And on the other end is people who are mission driven, like you, Salmon, who clearly have proof behind it. You have a mission that reflects in the content that you've created, and I think you just need to allow yourself to be seen and to speak up more. And this is not advice that we typically will give, because most people will take that as permission to go and broadcast their message from every single place and spam it to the planet and try to become famous. You have something that's worthwhile. And just from, I looked at your stuff when you came into the room while other folks were talking, and I think that maybe you don't want to appear to be some braggadocio sort of person, but why not share what it's like behind the scenes on this documentary? Why not share the, like, why you want to help youth and you help them give direction and change the education system and things like that? And why not start your own podcast where you're interviewing these other people that are in your life and in your circles? And I bet you most of the knowledge in your head that you think is mundane and obvious, people would find fascinating. Put it out there and watch what happens. Share your expertise, not share your personal brand, not like general sort of what are these vague aphorisms about success. That's not what that's what these other people are doing, what these a lot of success coaches are doing. But share your experiences. I think you have a ton of value.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
And ask your followers. You've got a bunch of followers on the different social networks. Why don't you say, hey, what's the first word that comes to mind when you think of me? And you're a great listener. You said it in your profile, you've demonstrated it here. Find out what people say. What do they say? Have you asked?
No, I haven't. Maybe that's a good question to start with.
Boom, there you go.
Yeah, and one thing, great stuff, Dennis and Salman. And one thing that's hard to recognize is we don't know who we're influencing because, as Dennis mentioned earlier, you don't see all the feedback. You don't know who's linking. He mentioned earlier, you don't know who might have linked or shared your blog post or whatever. And the truth is, if you put your voice out there, whether it's here in Clubhouse or in blog posts or in interviews or a podcast, whatever, you'll never know everyone who's listening. You'll never know everyone your voice or your message or your story touched. And you just have to, if you're compelled to do, you want to share because you want to share and not worry about the fact of counting how many people you've influenced, and just know that you are influencing just by putting your voice out there. And someone somewhere is hearing it, and you may have moved someone somewhere, and you'll never know how you impacted that person or their life. Dennis, I think we're at the top of the hour.
That is, close us out, Jeffrey. And thank you, everybody. I love spending time with you. If you're listening on the replay, we would love to hear your feedback.
Yes, and Clubhouse just updated the app, so now you can share clips from the replay. So if you hear something you like, you can tap that scissor and share a clip of it, even from listening to a replay. So thank you again, Dennis. Really, it's been an honor to co-host this show with you or moderate for you. We've been doing this probably now 30 or 40 episodes, maybe more. I've lost track. And you can
Love it.
find recordings of all the Coach U shows over at startup.club. And of course, since Clubhouse added replays, we've been turning on the replays so you can find replays of the shows here on Clubhouse. And it's really a privilege to get to speak to all of you. I learn from Dennis every single week on this show. I take copious notes in the midst of moderating, and we really appreciate you taking the time of your day to spend an hour with us each Thursday evening. So we hope to see you again. Dennis, any final remarks?
Thank you, Jeffrey, so much for spending the time and donating it. And thank you to Startup Club for hosting this and all the infrastructure behind the scenes on startup.club. You can catch all the transcriptions and other discussions. Some people, they prefer reading versus listening. That's fine. And then thank you guys. So any questions that you have, any topics that you have, we are here to listen. We're not getting paid for this. We're doing it as a service to the community. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Salman. Thank you, everyone who contributed on stage tonight. And thank you, Dennis, the only you here. See you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.